I want to talk about Anne Applebaum, who is Radek Sikorsky's wife, and uh, she's a Pulitzer Prize-winning historian, the author of The Twilight of Democracy, in which she outlines America's accelerating descent into a kind of Russian-style autocracy. And this isn't mere hyperbole or the grumbling of coastal elites. It's a well-evidenced, historically grounded diagnosis of a democratic nation hollowing out its institutions from within. And central to her thesis is the figure of Donald Trump, less a president, more a prototype of a 21st century strongman, a thug, a bully. So, beginning with Applebaum's first most urgent warning, the normalization of lawlessness, and she compares America's recent practice of deporting asylum seekers and legal residents to ungoverned zones like El Salvador's detention sites with the early Soviet use of gulags, acronymic, opaque, and free from judicial oversight. These places are where the rule of law is suspended. It's not just a humanitarian concern, it's a test case in authoritarian conditioning. How far can state cruelty go before the public flinches? And in this, of course, the UK has, in a way, already set the standard by attempting the Rwanda plan. Whether it happened or not, it doesn't matter, it was considered, and Trump is taking that further. Second, Applebaum points to the corruption of institutions, a creeping form of kleptocracy. And under Trump, federal agencies served not public interest but personal profit. Think Saudi money at Trump hotels, think Elon Musk, not just as a CEO, but as a figure very similar to a Russian oligarch, rewriting space policy, shaping federal decisions, staffing agencies. America, she argues, is no longer governed through institutions, but around institutions. Third, and perhaps most tragically, is the rejection of the rule of law itself. Trump's blatant violations of the Emoluments Clause and his use of government for personal enrichment were met with very little consequence. Congress didn't act, the courts murmured, the press, fatigued, turned to spectacle. Applebaum's point here is deeply historical. The rule of law is older than the US Constitution. It stretches back to Magna Carta, and its betrayal is not merely legal, it's an affront to civilization. Now, consider propaganda, her fourth point. In the Russia of today, propaganda is not only linguistic, it's theatrical. It's a performance. Stage deportations, executive orders written as drama, carefully composed images of margarita drinking deportees. This is show trial logic, narrative over truth, and America is beginning to embrace it. And that brings us to Hungary, her fifth case study. Viktor Orban turned Hungary into a blueprint for soft autocracy. 20 to 30% of firms are state adjacent. Universities serve the ruling party. Sound familiar? Well, think of the recent politicization of US higher education, with states like Florida openly purging liberalism from curricula. Applebaum warns America is not lagging behind Hungary, it's leapfrogging it, it's turbocharged by tech and media, which leads to cultural institutions, her sixth point. Christopher Rufo and Ron DeSantis' campaigns to recast universities as Marxist indoctrination centers are not cultural criticisms, they are strategic delegitimization. And Applebaum likens this to Mao's Cultural Revolution: dismantle the intellectual class and rebuild society not on knowledge, but on loyalty. Her seventh concern is international, the global withdrawal from Ukraine, pressurized by Trump's America. Trump's now infamous meeting with Viktor Orban at Mar-a-Lago, where he promised to end US aid to Ukraine, is not some eccentric gesture of isolation. It's a signal to Moscow. And days after that meeting, Trump's team temporarily severed intelligence sharing with Ukraine. Even a few days of such a blackout had real disastrous consequences. Ukraine's forces were unable to anticipate strikes and lost crucial ground. This isn't neutrality, this is alignment. Sorry, it's not days after the meeting with Viktor Orban, it's days after the meeting with Zelensky. But finally, Applebaum delivers her eighth and most painful truth, that authoritarianism makes you poor. Hungary is now one of the poorest countries in the EU. I've travelled along its roads, awful. Venezuela, Zimbabwe and Russia, once reasonably middle-income countries, have all suffered economic and intellectual erosion under autocracy. In America, the same seeds are now being sown. Civil service positions are being filled by cronies. Investment is eroding. Trust in institutions is collapsing. And what replaces them? Loyalty tests, conspiracy theories, cults of personality. And Applebaum's message is not ambiguous. The United States is not merely flirting with autocracy. It is rehearsing it. Trump's promise to Orban, the severing of intelligence to Ukraine, the theatrical cruelty, the oligarchic business deals, the dismantling of cultural and academic institutions, these are not disconnected events. These are the components of a system. And systems are powerful things. Once constructed, they are hard to dismantle. Applebaum, and once taken apart, they are hard to reassemble. Applebaum doesn't offer an easy remedy, but she is clear about the antidote: moral clarity, institutional resilience, and above all, the courage to treat these issues not as eccentricities, but as existential threats to our way of life. Because, as she says, America may not look like Russia just yet, but in structure, in spirit, and in momentum, it is already halfway there.